Good afternoon. You guys ready?
Yes.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Director Mike Williams, Director of Patrol and Enforcement. I have with me today Director Tom Hackney. Tom is the Director of Investigations at Homeland Security for the agency. Hey, we're here today to talk about some gun violence that's occurred here in the last 30 days in Jacksonville. To clarify some numbers, since the beginning of April, we've had 33 people shot in 29 incidents around the city. 7 of those people have died, so we're working 7 homicides in that number. Obviously, the fatal shootings that have occurred, our homicide unit are working those shootings. We've got a number of operations going on in the area that this is occurring. Some of these operations are covert, and we will not talk about those today. We do have some overt police activity that you may have seen or obviously will see in that area. Really, it's the areas that we're concentrating on are the ones that are most greatly affected by the gun violence that we're seeing, especially in the last 30 days. We've done a lot with patrol saturation in those areas in the last 30 days, and even prior to that. Done a lot of knock and talks in the area, trying to engage with citizens again, trying to develop some information to help with these 7 homicide investigations that we're working, as well as some of the other shooting investigations that we're currently working on. This has been an effective tool for us in the past. It will continue to be an effective tool. We'll continue to use that to leverage the community to help us solve these crimes. We have also directed some additional manpower into the area, mostly from our Operation Safe Streets initiative. That's really a way of doing business for us, but we do have squads that we label as Operation Safe Streets units, and we have again redirected those units into those areas. So with that, I'll turn it over to Director Hackney to talk more about the investigative piece of what's been occurring.
Thanks, Mike. We get several questions that come up about when we have these shootings or these groups of shootings that seem to have a higher spike in the gun crime. And one of the questions that comes up is the gang nexus with these. I get asked that quite a bit in the position that I'm in. Are gangs related to this or drugs related to this? And I can pretty well tell you that in the city of Jacksonville, if you're not buying drugs, selling drugs, or hanging out with somebody that's doing one of those two things, your chance of being a victim of gun crime in Jacksonville is very low. There are gang members that are involved in these shootings that we're talking about because there's a nexus between gang members and drugs. If there's a nexus between drugs and the shootings and the murders, there's certainly a nexus between the gang members and the shootings. We take that very seriously. We do covert work from our gang unit to discover the members of these gangs that are involved in these shootings. That's an ongoing thing, not just related to what would be termed as a spike during this month. It is, though, drugs, the single driver of these shootings here. Many times I come before the public and ask for help when these murders happen. That's nothing unusual in this case. We truly need the community to become engaged with the sheriff's office to help us solve these murders, these shootings. They can do that in several different ways. They can do that by remaining anonymous and calling Crime Stoppers at 1-866-845-TIPS. I say that a lot. We get a lot of calls from them. We solve a lot of murders from our Crime Stopper partners with that. With the number of murders and shootings that we've had this month, if you look at 33 shootings this month, and 2 people knew about each one of those shootings, I mean, you're almost up to 100 people, and if they tell 2 people, you've got a lot of people who could have information about these particular shootings and particular murders. They can help us solve these crimes. They can help us get these perpetrators off the streets of their neighborhood by picking up that phone and either calling us or calling Crime Stoppers. Another aspect of what we're doing is the gun bounty program. It kind of works hand in hand with Crime Stoppers, but you could receive up to $3,000, again, remaining anonymous, with a $1,000 payout for a tip that results in an arrest, another $1,000 for a gun if we recover the gun, and another $1,000 if we solve a murder or a shooting related to one of those things. That's $3,000. It's no small change, and that's another incentive to have folks give us a call. Again, we want people to call with any information they have related to these crimes, but most especially, I've given you some ways that we can kind of sweeten that pot, if you will. Again, we appreciate your assistance this afternoon, and certainly myself or Director Williams can take a few questions.
Assistant Chief Hackney, the moment you're talking about operations, you say a common thread here is drugs for the most part.
Yes, Roger. Without any doubt, through our investigations, we learned that so many of these shootings and murders are related to drugs. This is from street level marijuana to larger cocaine. You know, just a drug nexus is definitely there.
Derek Gillum, Times Union. How much of an increase in the patrol did you do in the areas that were high crime areas?
Well, I mean, I can tell you it's difficult to try to, produce resources internally to target these spikes. We were able to, about 30 days ago, start an initiative, a little over 30 days ago, and put about 10 people in some really concentrated areas, 10 additional patrol officers. We've just since identified some more personnel to attempt to try to put in those areas. The problem with that is when you take them away from one, you are taking them away from one spot to put them in another. We're working in an area that's really concentrated in the northwest part of the city. However, we have other areas in the city that we also need to continue to work on. We can't completely abandon. So we need to, we monitor that every day and just have to evaluate day to day. So a rough number is 10. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's a little less. And we'll just, have to continue again to monitor that.
Tarek Miner with Channel 4 News. I got two questions.
Yes, sir.
The first one is, can you give us maybe the zones or the locations of these areas where you guys are, saturating, or where are these problem spots?
From I can give you a broad, it encompasses a lot of zones, and I think a good area for you to look at is maybe talking south to Beaver Street, north to Edgewood, east to I-95, and west to US 1, that box. So you touch a few zones in that area. It's very close to Zone 4. You touch Zone 1, you touch Zone 5. But that's really the focus. The spots we're concentrating on are within that big box I just gave you, so it's not that complete comprehensive box.
My second quick question
Yes.
is that, are you guys investigating any random shootings in people's houses, like West 20th Street and Myrtle Avenue?
Every shooting that even a call for, shots fired is investigated at some level. Sometimes that investigation ends with the patrol officer because there's nothing else to follow up. A report's always generated. That may or may not be followed up by detective vision, again, depending on what there is to follow up. But I'll let Tom answer anything about additional investigation that may be occurring. So,
The area that we've had several of these shootings in the last few days has been centered around that Myrtle Avenue. The murder yesterday was near 6th and Myrtle, 6th and Barnett. So that Myrtle Avenue corridor is somewhere that we've had quite a few detectives in, again, overtly and covertly in the last couple of days. Our efforts will continue there. I also want to mention that, we talked about the number of people, 33 shooting incidents. We've had 2 of our JSO family members been involved in those in the last week, one of which was actually shot on a traffic stop, another one shot at while investigating another crime. So, it hits home, and it hits one of your own, literally. So the help that we request is for the citizens and for us as well.
I don't mean to labor that point, but I didn't kind of answer the question. Are there random shootings that you guys are looking at? People not involved in anything, and I just heard that people are turning their lights off. They have their lights on, their house might get shot at. Does that sound familiar?
With the number of shootings that we have, just generally, we do have houses that do tend to get shot. Some of those are cooperative people that will tell us that they're actually not involved in anything. Our investigations will work towards those to make a determination really what happened and who may have done that. I won't say in every one of those cases, your victims aren't telling you the whole truth, but we'll look at that to make a determination. There's that nexus that comes into those quite a bit as well, the direct nexus. We'll look at each one of those individuals to make those determinations. Certainly, it's something that's just a routine part of an investigation into those. Yes, sir.
Derek Gillum, Times Union. According to Times Union records, there was 12 shootings in April of 2013. According to our records, there was 29 in April 2014. Is there anything that you guys noticed that's going on? Why the increase in shootings for this?
Some of that involves a little bit of a crystal ball to know why. We may never know why. We know, though, that the numbers are greater now. We're making efforts to do something about that. Our reallocation of some of our manpower will hopefully combat that. Asking for help, getting the public involved, that means a difference. That doesn't mean they weren't involved last April. These sometimes will come with seasonal spikes, but again, to know why or be able to put a finger on why, it's really hard to say. Yes, ma'am.
Aliana Gomez with Action News, kind of off of Derek's question there. Kind of the question is, why now? But are we seeing any other? You mentioned drugs being the driving force behind a lot of these crimes. Are we seeing a lot more of drugs coming from outside of the Jacksonville area into the city that's causing more problems? I know there's a lot of covert operations you can't discuss, but are we just seeing a bigger prevalence of drugs in our local communities now?
I won't say that we're seeing any spikes or anything different in reference to where they're coming from or what they're doing. Again, that drug nexus is there. Whether or not that's the actual driver behind why we're seeing a spike from last year to this year in them. Next month, you just don't know what next month could be. Next month could only be half of what we've seen this month. Without a crystal ball, it's hard to know. But I can assure you that from the narcotics unit that we have with the sheriff's office, that's one of their focuses is to from the large dealers to the street level guys, they are out there to get that pulse. Nothing from that pulse that we've taken has really shown us that.
Stephanie Brown at WOKV. People along that Myrtle Avenue corridor that may not be even directly involved in drugs, is there a concern, or should the people living in that area be concerned about their safety?
Every citizen of Jacksonville needs to take their own personal safety into account. In every neighborhood. It's just not the neighborhoods that we've outlined here, but folks in general need to be aware of their surroundings. They need to be willing to call and when they see something suspicious, when they see criminal activity, call us and let us know. We will send an officer out. We will do what we can to alleviate their fears, alleviate their concerns, and handle the problems that they throw our way. It's that area is going to receive some more manpower here, and they should see some relief from some of their fears. But that's just not that neighborhood that we're concerned with. It's the city of Jacksonville. Our efforts are focused towards the whole city, but this is an area that, if it's needing some special attention, it's getting it.
That area you're talking about, Myrtle?
That Myrtle, the area that Director Williams spoke about.
And on the staffing level as well, you mentioned it was just over 30 days or so that we increased the patrol in that area, knowing that now we've seen this apparent spike since we actually increased patrol. Do you have, a reaction to that?
No, like Tom said, you never know really what those numbers are going to show you. And we increased patrols in that. It's a big area that I gave you. There's pockets in there that we're working on. So we've had additional manpower in there, again, for over about 30 days. But again, 10 officers. So you didn't see the cavalry riding over the hill. 10 officers is enough to work on a small spot inside that area, but not enough to work that big area that I gave you. So we're going to, again, try to create some more resources if we can and cover more of those spots within that big area that I gave you. It's just something that you constantly have to monitor. You have to watch it every day. And again, with the resources we have, we've got to kind of manage that and put them, where we need them, when we need them. So.
Derek Gillum, Times.
Yes, sir.
You guys, there's been crime meetings. You guys have community crime meetings in those areas. How have those been beneficial, and what has come from those community crime meetings?
Without getting into any specifics, anytime we engage with the community, it's effective, and it absolutely is beneficial to us. Part of the effort in the saturation that we're going to do in the area that I spoke about is to just knock on doors and talk to people. So if you didn't make a meeting, you didn't make a SHADCO meeting, somebody will come talk to you. And if you've got information, like Director Hackney said, any piece of the puzzle any small insignificant information, or what you may think is insignificant, if you can share that with us, that might be the final piece of the puzzle we need to solve some of these crimes. So any engagement is worthwhile.
The last two shootings that I went to, the one on last night off Lincoln Court, and the one on West 6th Street. Both times the officers reported that people reported hearing the shots, but no one reported seeing the shooting. So is that part of the engagement process of going to knocking on doors, trying to get people to speak more about what they see instead of just what they hear?
Sure, and well, some of that is they may not have seen it; they may have just heard it. But yes, I mean, anytime we can engage the community, it's a benefit to us. So.
Any other questions?
Just one more. You mentioned specifically that you're looking to try to reassign some resources to some of those high crime areas. Can you talk in any more detail about what exactly that means?
I'm not sure we're just reassigning resources. We've got him in other areas doing similar things, and we're just going to concentrate him in this area.
So shifting patrols maybe from some low crime areas to... Just
kind of move patrol personnel around.
One more. Is there a gun violence problem in the northwest part of Jacksonville?
You know, I think there's a gun crime issue in Jacksonville that we have to get ahead of, and this is all part of it, working to get ahead of it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.